The abuse of children has recently made national headlines
and has rocked our community to its core.
It's time to start a conversation.
So join us.
Join us. Join us.
For one night as we stand together
to shed light on the senseless abuse of children.
See stories of courage from survivors who came forward to confront their abusers.
And learn how to spot the warning signs if you suspect child abuse.
Thank you for joining us. The television and radio stations of Syracuse are proud to be partners in what we're sure is an important program. It's one that will share information about a troubling subject brought to light in late 2011.
Child sexual abuse can be one of those hard to talk about subjects. Most of us had to take a crash refresher course late last year due to the events involving high-profile episodes of child sex abuse, including one that cast a shadow on the Syracuse University basketball program.
Those events taught us more about our responsibility to understand child sexual abuse and to respond to it. We've also learned how many of those impacted by these violent attacks suffer in silence for years and live less whole lives because of the wounds inflicted by predators.
Important services provided in Central New York help victims and families changed by this traumatic experience. These places also provide invaluable assistance to community and government leaders who work to prevent child sexual abuse.
People who know what it's like to go through this, investigators, advocates, and child victims, have all spent time with us so that we may help you understand why we can all become more aware of sexual abuse against minors, and so that we can work together to protect our children.
There is no place in Central New York that responds to child abuse like the newly renovated McMahon Ryan Child Advocacy Center in downtown Syracuse. The center is now able to coordinate both investigators and human service agencies under one roof. The state-of-the-art upgrade helps young victims feel safe after what is often a traumatic, life-altering experience. Photojournalist Jim Gibbons shows us what a visit to McMahon Ryan is like through the eyes of a child.
Hi, welcome to McMahon Ryan Child Advocacy Center. My name is Jen. I will be the child advocate that will help walk you through everything that you're going to be doing today. Follow me. So now that you're here, we're going to meet with a bunch of different people that I work with. They're my friends. They're really, really nice. You're going to meet with people from either the Syracuse Police Department or the Sheriff's Department. And they're really, really nice, so just be open and talk to them. Follow me this way. This is our waiting room. You'll just kind of hang out in here with me and with your parents until we're ready to talk to everybody. So we can watch TV, or we can play with the Xbox. We have coloring books. We have books that you can read and some toys back here. If you want to follow me, we can go back and check out some of the rooms that we can go talk in. So this is where you'll talk to my friends from the police department and from children's division. So another day you might be coming back to this awesome place and you're going to see one of my other friends. They work upstairs on our second floor. They're a medical team. They're just a bunch of doctors. They're very, very nice. And maybe you'll be coming back too to meet with one of our counselors. And they have all these great toys and playrooms upstairs, which we'll show you later.
We're here up on the second floor, and this is the called the Care Clinic, and we have really great medical doctors and nurses that will be looking at you. We're actually going to be going in here. We have a lot of fun things in here, toys and games. So you can sit here with your mom or dad and play until the doctor's ready to see you. And then after your mom or dad is done talking to the doctors, then they're going to go through here with your mom and dad or your grandma and grandpa. And you're going to be coming into this room. And this is just like going to your regular doctor. The doctors are just going to make sure everything's okay. They're going to check to make sure you're healthy. They'll ask you a few questions, but they're not going to do anything that's going to be scary or anything like that. So then after you've had your appointment with the doctor, then you can come back out here and sit and play and wait for the doctors and the nurses to talk to your parents.
We're going to go into the play therapy room and you can play with a few toys and we'll see what happens. Does that sound okay? Okay. And everything in this room you can play with, which is kind of exciting because I like to play with all the toys too. So we can start if you'd like. This is my favorite toy in the whole room, but you can tell me what you think. This is Meeby. And with Meeby, you can take him and you can put anything you're feeling right on here. So see all these faces? Like if you're feeling happy today or if you're feeling sad, I don't know, whatever you're feeling. If you want, we can also read some of these books. It really just depends on what you want to do. And like I said, you can play with everything that's here. Any of the puppets, any of the dolls. So you can pick your favorite animal. It's totally up to you.
There's a lot of behind the scenes places, and it's really important that the community understand that it really is a team that does all this. And we have amazing men and women every day that help these kids and have dedicated their lives to helping these kids.
Since moving into the new East Genesee Street facility last summer, the child abuse response team housed at McMahon Ryan has assisted hundreds of child abuse victims. You can learn more about what the center can do for families at mcmahonryan.org.
Child abuse occurs at every socioeconomic level, across ethnic and cultural lines, within all religions and at all levels of education.
When it comes to child neglect and maltreatment, Central New York had a high-profile worst-case scenario just 4 years ago. The death of Aaron Maxwell led to changes in Oswego County, changes that protect our children more effectively. The new Social Services Commissioner told me what the child protective system was like before and after the death of little Aaron.
11-year-old Erin Maxwell was strangled to death in her Palermo home. Her stepbrother is doing 25 to life for the crime. On 3 separate occasions before the murder, social service workers investigated the filth and squalor at the home. Each time, the family followed orders to clean up the abusive conditions that Erin was forced to live in. The case was closed.
Once the case is closed, we don't have the authority to go back in and check up on them or to peek in the windows or to figure out whether or not things are continuing to go well, because families have rights. Parents have rights.
Greg Hefner was not with Oswego County's Social Services Department when Aaron Maxwell died. He's only been the commissioner for the last 6 months. And even though in 2008 the department did what the letter of the law requires, there's no question the county's child protective caseworkers were severely overworked. In 2008, Oswego County had only 19.5 full-time caseworkers. Because of what happened to little Aaron, that's been doubled to 39.5. In 2008, Oswego County Child Protective investigated 2,100 reports. After Maxwell's death, that number jumped to 3,000 each year in 2009, 10, and 11, a near 30% increase.
I think there's significant need in Oswego County. I think our families need support. I think our families need help stabilizing. I think they need access to services. Services are not readily available in Oswego County. They're struggling either financially, they're struggling maybe with untreated mental health or chemical dependency issues, and quite frequently they enter service, unfortunately, through Child Protective.
Protecting our children, Hefner says, is everyone's responsibility. Getting to know your neighbors, being a good neighbor, keeping your eyes open. For what? For starters, he says, be aware of children moving around the community without any adult supervision.
There's either hygiene issues or there's nutrition issues. They're unkempt. Their clothes might be dirty. The physical body might be dirty. It's watching for signs of that kind of thing.
And when you see that kind of thing or anything else that makes you think a child may be neglected or abused, don't hesitate to call the state's confidential hotline.
When we know that something is happening and we get a report, we will investigate that. But a lot of those reports come from the community. They come from community and they come from mandated reporters. They're not reports that we generate, and we're not out actually looking for those cases because we don't have the authority to do so. If there is a suspicion, if there is a concern about a particular child, make that call. Call the 800 number.
Hefner says Child Protective will respond to a report from the state central registry. You can lodge such a report by calling toll-free 800-342-3720. Call takers at the hotline will help find out if there's enough information for a reportable incident.
When a child is suffering from any kind of abuse, many times it's in silence. Their ability to speak for themselves is robbed by feelings of fear and embarrassment. This is where mandated reporters who may better see the signs of suspected abuse step in to alert the proper authorities. In Onondaga County, these reporters account for almost half of the calls made to the abuse hotline each month.
In New York State, the law says, the social services law says that there's specific people that are professionals in New York State that are required by law to report any suspected incidences of abuse or neglect for children while they're acting in their professional capacity.
The list of professionals that fall under the title mandated reporter is quite long. No surprise it includes those who have frequent contact with kids, such as teachers, doctors, daycare staff, and even summer camp directors. You will also find police officers and the district attorney on the list.
A lot of our calls do come from mandated reporters, and which is great, because if we didn't have the law regarding mandated reporters, we might not ever get those calls.
In order to receive certification, mandatory reporters must complete either a 3-hour training class in person or the newer 2-hour online course.
Some of the more obvious things, if you see a child with a bruise and it seems suspicious, maybe it's in a location where it wouldn't normally happen from a regular fall or from a trip, or maybe there's different bruising at different stages of healing, or maybe there's just a bruise and mom tells the person one story and the child says something completely different happened, so that would be suspicious.
Harder to spot is the abuse that does not leave a mark on the body. For these crimes, alert and observant adults with close dealings with kids may see the signs of deeper trouble.
If they're acting differently, if they're not the same type of child they used to be in the past, especially if they have an ongoing relationship with that child, if they notice different behavioral patterns or different interactions with other kids that they're hanging out with, or even with them as professionals, if their demeanor changes, if they seem withdrawn, if they're maybe talking in ways that they didn't talk before.
However, it's not a call that anyone looks forward to making. Discovering possible maltreatment or neglect of a child can be very upsetting, especially for those with close contact to a child and their family.
I think it's scary. It's very scary to call the hotline in general, especially when you have a working relationship with that child and possibly their family. You might feel like you're betraying that family, or you might ruin your relationship with that family by making the call. But the laws are made to protect people to make the calls. So the law first states that as a mandated reporter, you have to make that call. So you're making the call, and then after that, there's laws that protect the caller. We don't reveal source information. So when we get a report, we don't automatically go to the parent's house and say, you know, Mrs. Smith from Jones Elementary School called this in and said this is what you did to your child, or this is what happened. We say we have a report, these are the allegations, and we just read to them the allegations.
Once a call is made to the hotline, social services are notified and the investigation begins. Mandated reporters may be required to provide certain records that will help in the investigation, but detailed accounts are not required to make the initial call. A mandated reporter needs only to have suspicion of abuse.
A lot of people say to me in the community, they say, well, we don't really know what happened, so why should we make a call? We don't have evidence or we don't have proof, so I'm not going to make that call. And what I say to them is, you only need suspicion. That's all you need. We're the investigators. We're looking for the evidence and the proof. So you just need something suspicious. But I think because it's kind of gray, the suspicion area, a lot of mandated reporters do get nervous.
Failure to make a report is a serious crime, punishable by up to 1 year in jail and a hefty fine. However, Sarah Easterly believes that if and when the time comes, most mandated reporters make the call and do what they are required to do for the sake of a child.
I do think that, in general, mandated reporters do a great job at being able to balance their role as a mandated reporter in reporting abuse and neglect, and also maintaining relationships and interactions with children and families. I think they do a great balance of that.
In New York, the law requires that mandatory reporters only need to go through the training once in order to obtain whatever licensing they need for their specific profession. However, Sarah Easterly tells us that many schools, daycares, and medical facilities in our area regularly update their staff with refresher courses in spotting suspected abuse of a child.
About 30% of abused and neglected children will later abuse their own children, continuing the horrible cycle of abuse.
Well, Monique Wright-Williams joins us now to talk about her story of sexual abuse as a child. And Monique, how did it start for you, and how long did the abuse last? It was at the hands of several different people, wasn't it?
Yes, unfortunately it was. The abuse for me started around 4 or 5 years old. The first 2 people to abuse me were teen girls. And then from there, my uncles and my stepfather, between the ages of 6, 7 till I was 16 years old.
And did anybody else know this was going on as you were growing up?
You know, I think someone else had to know. I kind of think, you know, my brother may have been somewhat aware with my uncles, but it's, you know, it's hard to tell. No one's going to say that they knew and just didn't do anything.
Did you have some positive presence in your life, though, that helped you get through what had to be very difficult times?
They didn't realize they were helping me through a trauma, but they did help me through it. My teachers, the teachers that I had from kindergarten straight through to high school, were incredibly supportive and helped to give me a sense of self-worth.
And you were a pretty good student, right?
I was a pretty good student, yeah.
And they must have seen that in you and reached out and helped.
They did. I think they were more just from the perspective of education, just reaching out and helping a good student, but they didn't realize that the more that they showed me that I was worth attention and, you know, that I could do something that was positive, the more I tried to please them.
All this time, though, you didn't tell anybody. You didn't go to your mother or your best friend and say, hey, this is happening to me, what do I do about it, right?
No.
Which is a very common story, isn't it?
Very common,
now.
Yes, it is.
When did it finally become apparent to other people that you had been abused?
Well, no one knew until it was completely over. When I was in college, my then boyfriend called and told my mother that I had been abused.
And what did that do in terms of your relationship with your mother for short-term and long-term?
Well, it put it on the table. I did go home and expect that, okay, now everything is going to be fine, I'll be protected. And unfortunately, her brothers, who were 2 of my abusers, were at my house for Thanksgiving. And then for a moment I thought, wow, you're still not protecting me, you're not taking care of me. And then I really shut down. I think that really is what caused me not to be able to say anything about anything else, because I thought, well, you know, maybe it's just too much for her to have to deal with you know, those being her brothers.
And then as an adult, you've had to keep dealing with this throughout your whole life now, right? It doesn't go away,
It never goes away. No, I'll be dealing with this the balance of my life.
Why is that? What is it about being abused at that age that you think affects you all these years later?
Well, those are foundation years. It's when you're discovering who you are, you're developing how you're going to relate to people. So, you know, I learned very early on that, you know, you didn't tell, you didn't say things, you kept secrets. But it's not going to stay with me long term in a negative. It's staying with me long term, and I'm turning it around for positive, for good, to make sure that people are aware. That when kids just are isolated and alone, they might not just be shy or introverted. They may have a secret that they're keeping that they shouldn't be keeping.
Do you think this is a problem that we can reduce, that it could be less of a problem by people being more aware?
Oh, absolutely, definitely. Knowing that someone, if a perpetrator knows that a child might tell, they're not going to bother that child. They look for the vulnerable child, you know, and so since my abuse started so early and I learned secrets so early on, I was a walking message for, you know, I'm not going to tell, I'm not, you know, strong on my own will. So I think, yeah.
Thanks for sharing your story, Monique.
Not a problem.
We appreciate you being here and sharing the story with everybody about your secret and how you handle it so well all these years later. Thank you.
Thank you.